ahead and hit. So good morning, everyone. My name is Katie Lubetz. I am the president and CEO of Learning to Lean, based out of Hortonville, Wisconsin. I am a Lean Six Sigma Master Black Belt and Certified Project Management Professional. I'm also an emotional intelligence coach. I'm an author. I've written 3 books, and I have over 20 years of experience in lean, continuous improvement, and project management and coaching. I love what I get to do every day, and hopefully that comes through when you attend these sessions with me or when we have the opportunity to work together. So I'm proudly wearing my new shirt. If you haven't had a chance to check them out, Data Driven Diva t-shirt. I am totally about data. So if you know anything about me, you know that I talk about data quite a bit. And my background actually is in IT. So I started my journey on continuous improvement in IT as a business analyst, and my career has been very blessed and blossomed from there. So yes, I'm proud about really enjoying data. And I talk about frequently how we need data in order to solve our problems. So let's go ahead and get started with our quick session today on Blitz, DMAIC, and DMADV. So as we know, these are Lean Six Sigma problem solving approaches. So that's what these 3 things that I mentioned are about. So as you know, lean is about the elimination of waste from a process. Waste is something that utilizes resources but adds no value, meaning the customer is unwilling to pay for it. It doesn't change form, fit, or function or make our product or service any better. That's how we define value by the customer. Six Sigma, as we know, focuses on the reduction of variation. So variation becomes a problem when the variation that exists doesn't fall within the parameters of what our customer has stated that is required. Or for some of you in different types of industries, not only what the customer has stated that's required, but there are standards out there for care. So like in the healthcare industries, you have standards of care or you have federal governmental regulations. So Six Sigma and focuses on that reduction of variation. So when we're looking at things like this, the first one we're going to talk about is a blitz. So a blitz is a just do it. So that's the first Six Sigma problem solving approach that we'll look at. And then a DMAIC. So DMAIC stands for define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. So this is a current process that needs to be fixed. It's a broken process, broken in the eyes of not having a repeatable process with predictable results. Now, DMADV, on the other hand, stands for define, measure, analyze, design, and verify. This is a process that needs to be created because one does not currently exist. So this may be you have to meet a new federal guideline. So we need to have a new process for that. This may be exciting new opportunity for you. You're going to build a new product or deliver a new service that you've never done before. How exciting. We would use a DMADV for that. And then the last one for Six Sigma problem solving approaches that we've talked about along the way in any of my sessions is called Kaizen. So rapid process improvement event. So we'll talk about Kaizen at another time. Today, we're going to focus on the first 3. So let's go ahead and talk about what is a blitz. So a blitz, you may have heard the phrases low hanging fruit or a quick win or a just do it. That's another word for a blitz. So a blitz is something that takes very little time and effort in order to complete. And many times, not always, but many times a blitz is something that's very visual. So I want you to think of something like 5S or visual management, right? So that's typically a blitz where we can take a picture of a before and an after. So this could be digitally or physically. So we always want to remember that any of these items that I'm talking about can be done in a physical area or in a digital area, in a manufacturing environment, in a healthcare environment, in HR, IT, it doesn't matter. We can do a blitz anywhere, right? You can do a blitz at home. And I'm showing you on the screen a typical blitz form. So it's important along your continuous improvement journey to capture these type of activities. Now, why would we want to do that? First of all, it helps us to be able to measure where we are from a continuous improvement culture. Sometimes we have goals or objectives within your organization in regards to supporting continuous improvement, and a blitz is a great way to do that because not everything is a big project. And we want to encourage those small wins. And a lot of times when I engage with companies, they ask me, where should we start first? And what do you think about this? And I always tell people, start with those small incremental changes. These small incremental changes, like a blitz, are what is going to move the needle for you in your organization when it comes to continuous improvement. So again, when we're looking at a blitz, I would say a blitz could be anything that would take you a minute to maybe a week or two, because you may have to work with other people. So you have to figure out some timelines, or you may have to order something. So maybe you need to order from Amazon, or you need to get some more materials or floor tape or a different type of paper or something like that. So this is very quick, a quick win, like it says there. And we shouldn't undervalue the the benefit that we can realize from doing a blitz. So again, these are the things that will move the needle within your organization. They're a safe place for people to try out their continuous improvement knowledge, right? And I can give you many examples of blitz that have been done that will impact, just as that form says, quality. We could even have some time savings associated with it, delivery, efficiency, a reduction of waste. Safety is another huge one for safety. Energy, morale, we're all looking at how can we engage employees and have them be able to apply what they have learned, maybe in a white belt class, or maybe you're really trying to have Lean and Six Sigma embraced in your organization. And these are activities in which we can say, we can do this together. It won't take us very long, and it's going to make a great impact to the organization. And sometimes it is just as simple as having a place for people to be able to put their things back at the end of the day. So whether they're using tools or they're using instruments, or as simple as making sure that people log off a shared system at the end of the day, or a process to help us remember to do that, that can really make a big difference for folks. One of the things that I hear from a manufacturing standpoint is that people will come in, and especially if they work out on the shop floor in a manufacturing area, you'll hear people very frustrated that they can't find their tools. I had my tool, I put it here, another shift came in or a different operator and they moved it. Well, doing a blitz by saying, you know what? One of the reasons why it's not always put back is because there's not a consistent or a designated area for that. Let's get a bin, or let's get a label for that, or something like that. That would be a quick win. And people, that sense of frustration goes away for those folks. Uh, a quick win in a non-manufacturing environment. I worked in companies where we're using software, and the software is very expensive, right? And we only have certain number of licenses. And if you're in a shared license environment, you know what I'm talking about, where we have one shared license or multiple shared license for a piece of software, and you have to wait for somebody else to get out of that software. And maybe we can put in, a quick IT change that automatically potentially logs people out after an hour of no use of that software, or something to that effect, right? Something where people can just breathe a sigh of relief and stop worrying, right? Stop worrying about when can I get into that software, or where can will I be able to find my tools when I come into work? right? We want these simple and quick changes within the organization. Now, again, sometimes we have to order things. It could be as simple as, we don't have a garbage can in our area. Can I please have a garbage can? Sure. Well, let's order one if we don't have one. So I don't have to walk so far or it'd be inconvenient for things like that. Again, these don't have to cost a lot of money, and it is a quick and safe way for people to be able to try out what they have learned in class. So again, quick win. uh, they like the phrase low hanging fruit. I don't know. It's for me, I think it's kind of old saying now. We've heard it maybe too many times, but that's what a blitz is. Now, next we have DMAIC. So DMAIC stands for Define, Measure, Analyze, Improve, and Control. And you heard me say a few minutes ago that we use a DMAIC when we have a process that's broken. And how do we define a broken process? A broken process is something that is not producing a product or service in according to our customer stated needs. So that's a broken process. So whether you have a quality issue, you have an on-time delivery issue, or you have a customer satisfaction issue, a DMAIC is a project that we would work on that would be a larger scale project. So a larger scale project is generally something that will take 1 to 3 months, maybe 6 months. And we can go into a whole discussion on project management. But I like to scope my projects so that they are between 3 and 6 months in length. 6 months really being the longest. Otherwise, we end up with a never-ending story. Now you may be thinking, but Katie, we have this huge problem. We don't have a system, or we need a new system, and our processes are broken, and it's going to take forever. I understand that. That would be called a program. And then you would have individual projects underneath that are appropriately scoped in length. So as an example, I had a customer that was replacing their main system. So we created that as a program, and then we had individual DMAIC projects for each department that we rolled out that program for. So again, a project management discussion, but let's talk about what a DMAIC does. So in the define phase of a DMAIC, we understand the problem we're trying to solve. And if you've taken any classes with me, you know that I talk about and I teach about a measurable problem statement recipe, where we talk about, tell me what is happening or what has happened. Tell me your data. Tell me what the impact of this problem is, why we should solve it, what is our target goal or metric in the scope of the problem. That is in the define phase. Tell me what problem you're trying to solve. And again, that scope piece is very important. In the measure phase, this is where we gather all of our data. So we may have some data in define, but we gather all of the data in the measure phase. In the analyze phase, we now determine the root cause of the problem and start coming up with a solution. In the improve phase, this is where we have the chance to implement the solution, right? This is what everybody wants to run to because they're so excited to be able to solve this problem, which is great. But we do need to take these methodical steps to get there. So in the improve phase, we work on implementing our future state. And in the control phase, this is what we call sustain the gains. So that means ensure that your change works and it sticks. So sometimes when people have an opportunity to improve things, they may just go back to the way they've always done it, right? Because they're more comfortable that way. So we have lots of conversations over that and making sure that the data, again, data is there to prove that you really have solved that problem. And we'll see that in the control phase. Now, keep in mind, a control phase can be anywhere between a few weeks to maybe a few months. I have customers that, because they have seasonality in what they do, they might not get into a control phase for a year, and that's okay, right? That's okay. You have to be able to prove that you have permanently solved the problem in the control phase, or you may have to go back to some of the previous steps. Now, one of the questions I get the most is, okay, I figured out it's a DMAIC. We have a broken process. I have no idea what tools to use. So I've created this chart. So this chart shows us for each phase, what tools could you consider using? Please don't look at this and think, oh my gosh, I have to use all these tools. That's totally not the case. I just want to give you a variety of tools to choose from, depending on the problem you're trying to solve. Now, if you go through any of my green belt training that I offer or the black belt training, we go through each and every one of those tools. And you probably think, oh my gosh, that class must be really long. It's a 40-hour class, but I not only show you the tools, but we learn how to apply them and we practice them. So it's definitely not death by PowerPoint. So let's look at these tools here for just a second. In the define phase, we are understanding what problem we're trying to solve. And of course, you need management commitment. With anything, you need management commitment. So again, this is a project that's going to take a few months to be able to complete. So you need to make sure that we don't lose momentum or people don't get distracted, right? And we're focusing on that. We have to have our baseline data. So what's that? Our baseline data is our starting data. Now, sometimes people will say, oh, we don't need that. We can get that later. No, that's not always the truth. Sometimes that data disappears, believe it or not. So this is the time in which we gather our baseline data, which means our starting data. Where are we starting out at? Again, our measurable problem statement. And like I said, I mentioned earlier, I talk about the fact that when I'm teaching measurable problem statement, I have a specific recipe. You want to focus on telling me the problem you're trying to solve, not telling me the solution to that problem. You have to just explain in this phase what problem you're trying to solve and what data do you have to support the problem. In that measurable problem statement, we also include our scope and our goal. Then we also want to make sure what metrics do we have that this problem may be impacting, or maybe we need to create some new metrics to be able to measure the success of this project. Sometimes we do a stakeholder analysis. Stakeholder is anyone that is positively or negatively impacted by your project. So we want to make sure we understand the landscape of our project. And then we have gathered the voice of the customer. So we talk about in class or when I'm coaching these projects, how do you gather your voice of the customer? There's so many ways to do that, but we have to make sure we've heard them. Voice of the customer, and then SIPOC. That stands for suppliers, inputs, processes, outputs, and customers. So for every project, whether I'm managing it from a DMAIC or a DMADV standpoint, or I'm managing the project or doing a Kaizen event, I always do a SIPOC. So measurable problem statement and SIPOC are pretty much standard for me everywhere. Then I talk to you about how to do the 5 whys, which some people call the little kids theory, right? So we're asking continuously why. And we look at systems thinking. So what's that? Systems thinking is the ripple effect, right? So if you toss a pebble in the water, we all understand the ripple effect. We need to know that now so that we know as we make changes who or what different areas or departments may be impacted by those changes, positively or negatively. And then process identification, waste identification, if you're familiar with the 8 wastes. We may be doing a Kaizen. You want to understand, is your process, if it's applicable to the problem you're trying to solve, batch or one-piece flow? And we also talk about team dynamics. So that's forming, storming, norming, performing, and adjourning. So it's important to be able to understand those team dynamics because they certainly can impact the outcome of your project. And then, of course, PDCA, Plan, Do, Check, Act. In the measure phase, again, you'll see management commitment all along. We look at a data collection plan. So where's your data coming from? How are you going to get that data? Who do you need help to get that data? And do you trust your data source? So as I mentioned before, you know that I'm passionate about data. And I'm also passionate about making sure you trust your data source. So what does that mean? That means, do you understand where your data is coming from? Could that data possibly have been manipulated? Is there emotional bias in your data? So those are all good questions that you need to ask in the measure phase. We may look at, or we would look at measurement system analysis or MSA, check sheets, and then visualize your data. We talk a lot about that in class. How do you visualize your data, right? Nobody wants to look at a spreadsheet full of data. They just want to see the picture. So histograms, Pareto charts, run charts, scatter diagram, control charts, right? Visualize your data. Your data is telling you a story. What is it trying to tell you? So by visualizing your data, you can do that in the measure phase. Then if it's appropriate, process sigma calculation in the measure phase, of course, your key metrics, looking at variability and capability. Can we benchmark? So that's one thing that is a very interesting concept because the majority of the clients that I work with, when I ask them if they know who their competitors are, they don't know. So if you don't know who your competition is for the company or organization that you work for, just go online and Google it or go into Chat GPT. I did that the other day. Make sure you understand who your competitors are. And there's certain companies that you can work with to be able to get that competitive market data. Gartner does a Magic Quadrant. I'm sure your organizations and marketing teams have access to data to be able to understand where you fall in regards to your competition. Now we may be doing cost of quality or cost of poor quality, COPQ, spaghetti diagram, where we're tracing the path of people or product or process. We're looking at takt time, OEE, and then of course PDCA. Again, you don't have to use all of these tools, but when I work with you in regards to coaching you on these things, I will tell you which tools are a must-have in my mind. In the analyze phase, we again are focusing on, okay, we're understanding what's going on and we're trying to come up with the solution. So we're looking at continuous improvement, of course, preventative maintenance. Preventative maintenance is not just about machinery, it's about systems too. We're looking at 5S, so the organizational tool, again, benchmarking, looking at data through central limit theorem, geometric dimensioning, audits, experiments and hypothesis testing or design of experiments, brainstorming. So are using Ishikawa, a fishbone, or a cause and effect, all the same tool, one tool with 3 names. Are we using affinity diagram or a mind map? Let's look at correlation versus causation in regression analysis, root cause analysis, workflow analysis, and of course, PDCA. So there's a lot to do and analyze. Now, keep in mind, as you're going through a DMAIC, we get define, measure, analyze, you may get to analyze and go, oh my gosh, I don't have all the data I need. That's okay, go back. And at each phase here, we are also revisiting our project charter. So for every project that I work on, I always have a project charter. And as I move from one phase to the next, I update that document and check in with it. In the improve phase, this is where we get to implement our solution. Yay, we're so excited, right? We would have our future state value stream map that we would be doing or referencing during this point in process improvements. We may focus on organizational development, but definitely variation reduction. Looking at poke-yoke or mistake proofing, and some organizations have to do a FEMA, a failure modes effects analysis. You're looking at quality, cost of quality, design of experiments, maybe looking at Kanban or point of use storage. We're always looking at the most powerful lean tool in the world, which is standard work. And we may have to look at SMED, which is single minute exchange of die, which is for changeovers. Now, keep in mind, changeovers can be from making one product to the next. Changeovers can also be a changeover in an operating room, right? Or changeover in a patient room. And we will look at flow, again, 5S, visual management, cellular layout, Judoka and Hijunka. So Judoka is intelligent automation. Hijunka is level loading, so making sure that we understand how long each step in the process takes. And then maybe just in time, which is a pretty cool concept if you can do it. And then in the control phase, this is where we monitor through potentially a control plan or long-term MSA, making sure we have some mistake proofing in there so people can't make a mistake, or you at least diminish the possibility of making a mistake in this new process. We can have lessons learned. You should absolutely do a lessons learned, or it's also called Hansei or reflection. Dashboards or balanced scorecards, meaning we want to have some sort of process to be able to monitor this new performance or this new process that we've implemented and make sure it's working. And again, you may have to do 5S. So this looks like a lot. Yes, it can be depending on the scope of the problem that you're trying to solve, but it's all very manageable and it's all very doable. And all of the tools that we use make sense given the problem that you're trying to solve. So again, DMAIC is fixing a broken process. Broken is defined as not being able to produce the product or deliver the service according to your customer stated needs. The next one is DMADV. So DMADV is when we have to come up with a brand new process. Now, this could be exciting and terrifying all at the same time, right? Maybe you're an organization that your company has now decided you're going to start down a completely different path and offer a completely different option for a customer. So I have the great people that did our roof here. They have just decided that they are going to also do bath remodeling. So that is a brand new process for them. So that would be a DMADV, because before they did roofing and siding, now they're doing bath remodeling. So that would be a DMADV because it is a brand new channel, sales channel for them to do. So as you see, define, measure, analyze, those are the same as we just looked at in the DMAIC. But design is there because we're not improving anything, we're creating something. So in that design phase is where we're creating our new sales channel or our new tool that we're creating or our new offering or our new patient portal or whatever it may be. And then verify is just like control. So we have to have a step that we verify and make sure that our new process that we have implemented or our new sales channel that we're utilizing actually works. And again, just like DMAIC, you may be able to verify that over a period of weeks, or it could be a period of months. So for the example, with a roofing company, the verification step in that process is going to take them quite a while, depending on how many customers they get. So one customer isn't going to be able to say that you have passed through the verify phase. You need more than just one data point, right? So depending on their sales volume, that could be, we could verify and feel that that step is complete within a month. My guess is probably going to be 6 months to a year before they can really say, yes, we have verified that this new process or this new opportunity that we're providing for our customers actually works. So how do you know what methodology to use? So let's look at this and think about cooking or baking. So you followed the recipe, but after making it for the first time, you now know it needs more salt. That's a blitz. That's a just do it. This is kind of an inside family joke because my parents come to visit, and regardless of how I season the food, they always put more salt on it. So it's just do it, right? Let's just do that. It's not that big of a deal. We will just make sure that we add more salt to it next time. You've made that chocolate cake recipe from your grandma many times, but it never quite tastes like hers. It doesn't rise and it isn't moist. That would be a DMAIC. So your process for making cake is broken and it doesn't rise, which means you need a rising agent. So maybe baking soda or baking powder, I always get those mixed up. And it isn't moist. So maybe we need more eggs or we need more oil or some sort of more liquid, right? And we can go through that process and experiment with that, do a design of experiments to be able to make that change. So that's a DMAIC. You just found out that you have to go completely gluten-free. Oh boy, that's a DMADV, right? So that is a completely, totally brand new process for you. And I know many of you have had to undergo that. I was working with a gentleman that his family had to go through that. And what I didn't know is that gluten actually leaches into plasticware. So your plastic spatulas and stuff like that, they had to start completely fresh and brand new, got rid of everything in their kitchen and had to start over. So that would be a DMADV. It's something that they have never done before and needed to do for a medical situation. So that's the high level overview of Blitz, DMAIC, and DMADV. All great tools to use from a Lean Six Sigma perspective. Blitz, again, is a just do it. That something can be done within hours to maybe a week if we have to order something. And a DMAIC and a DMADV can take 1 to 6 months or more to be able to complete. But I encourage you to make sure that you're using a project charter for both of those and that your project is appropriately scoped so that you can feel and sustain the gains and continue your culture of continuous improvement within your organization. So if you have any questions, please let me know. If not, thank you so much and have a wonderful day. Happy Thanksgiving for those of us in the US next week. And I will see you in December for our next free class. Thanks and have a great day.